All right, and it looks like it's actually recording. Margaret, can you see? Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy White. I am an intuitive medium. I am a channel. I am a truth bomb dropper, among other things. And I'm so excited to have you all here for today's open channeling call. To just go over a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, I am going to ask you all to just stay muted for now. There'll be time to ask questions as we get towards the later part of this call. I've actually been getting a lot of information over the last couple of days about the need, at least for today, to have less channeling and more opportunity for questions. So I'm hoping that you all are feeling comfortable to ask. And I want to let you know that when we ask, when we open it for questions, it doesn't have to be questions about the channeling. It can really be anything that's on your heart, that's on your mind, that you're looking for guidance or more information from the greater consciousness about or around. So as we get started, I want to introduce you to Margaret. Margaret is going to be my right-hand woman on today's call. Margaret's going to be managing the chat function. So please feel free to post and chat, especially if you are having trouble hearing me, or if you are, if there's something that's not making sense that you need an immediate response to, Margaret can then help me to know what you guys are needing. The other thing is that when we get to the open questions part of today's call, what I'll ask is you don't have to put your whole question in the chat, but you can just put a question mark and send it, send it to everyone. And then we'll know that you have a question, and Margaret will then go ahead and unmute people as it's time to ask questions. So again, welcome to everyone. I know there's been a few additional people that have joined here in the last minute or so. So please just keep yourself on mute until we get to the questions part of today, and then we'll work on unmuting one at a time. I want to talk a little bit just at the very beginning here, because some of you are new to my work, and I want to explain a little bit about the process and how it will flow, and also to discuss and introduce the greater consciousness. So I'm going to start there actually. So I have been channeling for more than 10 years now, but over the last couple of years, the energy source that I've been channeling through has come clearer and clearer to me, with the fact that they have a name, and that they want to be, called by the name when I'm working with them. And so they brought forward the greater consciousness name to me. And the way that they describe themselves is they describe themselves as all of the wisdom that ever was, all of the wisdom that will ever be, and all of the wisdom that is here right now in this time and space, and every being. So this is a connection into the infinite wisdom that exists in each one of you, that exists in the collective. And it's really an internal tapping into this knowing, as opposed to, and they're really clear about wanting to be specific about the fact that they're not this external source as much as they're this internal force of beingness, of energy, of knowledge that sits within all of us. And so a lot of times when we're going through a channeling like this, you may feel as though you're having a lot of aha moments or resonance or validation. And that's because this collective energy is really tapping into all of the questions that we have, all of the things that we're wanting to know and needing to understand, especially in this time now. So in another minute or two, I will get myself just a little more grounded, and then I will allow the greater consciousness to come through and really share with us any message that they have. It's a lot of what I've been asking, and a lot of what I feel the collective energy is surrounding the current, experience that we're all having with the world and with the virus and all of that. But there is likely going to be more information that comes through as well that may not even relate to that. I do want to also just let you know that I have an interesting channeling process. So for those of you who've sat with other channels, I tend to do a dance between interpreting the information that the greater consciousness is bringing through to me and actually allowing the greater consciousness to speak through me. And just based on the way that the words are coming through, it'll be really easy to tell which is which. And it doesn't really matter, except that sometimes when people first sit with me, it can be a little bit confusing as to who's saying what and why. And so I wanted to just make sure that you all understood that it's just the greater consciousness coming through, and it's just a little bit of a different delivery mechanism that I seem to be working and flowing with. If you were on the last call, you saw that most of the last call was the greater consciousness just speaking directly through me. So I'm interested to see how it's going to flow today. I think that's it, Margaret. Did I cover everything? Great, great. All right, then I am going to just take a moment or two here to ground and connect. And I'm going to invite each of you to take a few deep breaths, perhaps set an intention for what you are wanting to get from today's call. And the invitation here is to simply be open to the possibilities of all of the information that's coming in, and even in places or parts or pieces of information that maybe don't resonate with you. The invitation is to be aware of where there may be resistance, because often that resistance feeling or the pushing against feeling is a place where you may want to just touch in a little bit deeper. Often that's the inner being's way, our inner knowing's way, our source way of letting us know that maybe there's something we need to pay attention to, or something that needs to be explored. So that's the invitation that's here for each of you today. So the first thing the greater consciousness wants to share is that things may be starting to feel a little bit more ease for each of you on the call. And as they started the last call, they want to really and truly honor the path which we're each taking as an individual, but also as the collective. They're saying that this has been an experience and continues to be an experience like nothing we've ever been faced with before, at least not of this magnitude. And that we are each individually, but also as the collective, doing way better than we think we are. That there's more coming together, that there's more compassion, there's more empathy, there's more hopefulness than we might see looking externally to the news sources or the social media sources or the conversations that we're having with friends or neighbors or family. That there is so much that's happening under the surface, and there's so many people who are coming to a place of a more peaceful coexistence with the experience that we have right now. And they love to use this word coexistence when they're talking about the virus. And that is because this isn't a time where we are energetically supposed to be efforting against the virus or efforting to make it go away. but it's really this co-creation, this co-experience of finding where we can be grounded, finding the ease that we may have, finding these places where we can be grateful for what is within and around us, even with this set of circumstances going on right now. And they want to really emphasize that piece of this, because our job, our role here is to find our way to a peaceful coexistence. It's to look for the things that we can find in the moment, in the day, in the weeks, whether we're still sheltering in place or whether that's been something that's not being asked of us right now. But in each of the moments, to find that place of peace. And that peace is really a big part of this. Yes, there's gratitude, and yes, we can spend the time focusing in on all of the things that are really beautiful around us. But without that basis, they're saying, without the basis of a peaceful feeling, without the basis of peace, of being grounded in the space that you're in and finding acceptance around it, that's where we either are going to find a smoother experience or we're going to find a more challenging experience. Because when we're not in that place of peace, we aren't going to be able to springboard to all of the opportunities, all of the creative endeavors, all of the pause, the benefit of this pause that's here for us. Now they're saying don't misunderstand that as we have to get to a place of peace and that's where we stay. This is a moment by moment process for some of us. Some of us are directly impacted by what's happening, whether we know somebody or whether we're working out in the in the world right now where we're coming in contact with lots of people. Whatever it might be, the practice of finding a peaceful foundation is a moment by moment by moment experience. And the thing that's really exciting here is that as we find the practice, as we take the time to work the muscle of finding that place of peace, it will come easier and easier and easier. But they're reminding me as we're talking here about a time not very long ago when I was in a very scary crisis time with one of my children. And in that experience, the way that I was able to come to a place of peace and a foundation of peace was literally at times saying the mantra over and over, in this moment, all is well. In this moment, all is peaceful. And sometimes I would have to string 300 or 400 of those mantras together just to create some space to really feel that experience, to really feel the experience of peacefulness. And the cool part of it is that when we are in a place of intentionally creating peace for ourselves, in that same moment, fear cannot live. In that same moment, worry cannot exist. In that moment, we're talking moment by moment by moment here. Now, I also know that some of the folks on this call are able to be in that place of peacefulness more and more often because of the practices that you've been doing on your own and as a collective in your groups and in your circles. And that's such a beautiful foundation for you. And what they're saying is that the way that you can help to share more peacefulness out into the world is simply to live from that place, to act from that place, to be in alignment with that desire within you. Now, they're also saying this is not about taking a quantum leap of faith. We talked about that on last month's call if you were here. And they want to continue to reiterate this. This is not a leap off the cliff and the net will appear moment for many of us. This is a granny shuffle, granny shuffle, granny shuffle, small baby step, small baby step, small baby step, as we build the momentum towards finding this peace within us. It can't come from anywhere else. We can't find this peace by making something else or someone else or some better experience our source. We can't, I mean, we can, and we do this a lot as humans, but we are not benefiting from saying things like, if this person acted a certain way, or if this government, you know, made these rules, I would feel more peaceful. If this person acted a certain way or didn't act a certain way, I would feel more peaceful. This is really about us tuning in to this inner knowing that we have, to this intuitive connection to source that we all have, and starting to find those places where we can really plug into and start to ingest internally what it is that we need. And by the way, that word peace, that's going to be different for all of us. Each one of us is going to have a different version of what peacefulness means, of what peace means, of what that foundation looks like. And the greater consciousness wants to be really clear when they say that it has to be that way. As soon as you try to make your peaceful foundation look like someone else's peaceful foundation, because in the way that we compare ourselves with others as humans, we see somebody doing such a good job staying in a place of calm and peace. If we try to only emulate what someone else is doing, we're going to find that it's not going to feel resonant with us, because the biggest piece here of this time, of this pause, of this reset, is for us to really learn, each one individually, what it means to come home to ourselves, what it means to start to look internally for the answers, what it means to start to trust when we are getting information, whether we believe that we're intuitive or not. It's the signs and the symbols and the aha moments that we each have on a day-to-day basis that is the communion with our inner knowing. And the way that this experience is going to continue to unfold for each of us is one that's going to feel, for a while, like a roller coaster. And it's going to become harder and harder for us to not just trust, but resonate with the information that we're getting from outside sources. And so that's why it's so important right now that we're being invited to turn inward, to look at our own inner way that we commune with source, with spirit, with God, whatever the name is that you call this energy source. And recognizing that this energy source is not separate from us. It's not something outside of us, but it's something that's inside of us that we each have access to. And then beginning to nurture and foster and love on this part of us, this aspect of us, this aspect that's been with us since prior to birth and will be with us prior to transitioning into the non-physical. It's a really beautiful invitation for us to take bite-sized pieces, baby steps, granny shuffle, as they were saying, towards this bigger and bigger ability to trust what we already know, and to be able to look outside at what we're seeing and start to discern, is this truth for me, or is this not truth for me? And then acting from that point, taking inspired action from that point towards what does resonate for you. This is a really big shift. It's a big shift. It's a bigger shift for those who haven't already been doing a lot of their internal exploration. But it's even a big shift for us because we as humans are conditioned to believe that we have to strive and effort and figure out and plan and follow the rules and listen to people who are in positions of assumed authority. And we're really going to feel, in some ways, challenged, in other ways, tasked with an adventure as we start to sort through what is truth for us, what feels right for us, and how do each of us stay in a place of being grounded in the knowing that as long as we continue to tune back into our inner being, our inner knowing, that we can make decisions for ourselves that may not look like what we're being told to do, or may not appear to be following the status quo. And that's okay. That's actually better than okay. It's really the spiritual evolution of this time to start to recognize where we don't have to follow what everyone else is doing. We don't have to believe what everyone else is believing to be in a place of truth and authenticity within ourselves. And the other piece of this is that when we come into alignment with something which pushes against the outward collective, which pushes against the mainstream, that we know we do not have to energetically push against any of it. That the calling here for us is to learn how to come into alignment with what is true for us, and then live from that place without having to show anybody else in words or intentional actions why our way is better, easier, smarter, faster, kinder than theirs. And this is really important because as we continue through the next period of time, and when I ask the greater consciousness in my own practice, how long is this going to go on? Because I mean, the human part of me is ready to do some things I was doing prior to all of this, especially travel and spending time with friends and family and hugs, all of those things that I know many of us are missing. And I'm asking, how long is this really going to go on? And though anything can shift energetically, because as the momentum in the collective energy starts to build, time shifts, because it's really just a construct that we've created. But we're looking at, a good year of some roller coaster, and then time beyond that of having to sort of rebuild and restructure the way that we go forward in our lives based on the fallout of some of the things that have happened. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be sheltered in place or any of that for that period of time, but it's a slow roll, they're telling me. It's a slow roll, and it's really up to each of us individually to find the ways, as they were talking about a few minutes ago, with that peaceful foundation and coming into alignment with our authentic truth, to be able to live within this, coexisting within this. And then it doesn't really matter how long it takes to shift to some different normal, or shift back to some things that we you know, enjoyed and we're excited about in the way that life was prior to this occurring. It's really important, though, that we understand our responsibility here, which is to take ownership of our experience and to use that for the purpose of, first and foremost, they're saying this is not about how do I go out into the world and make it a better place. This is cleaning up your house first. And in that way that they're saying it, it's about getting ourselves in alignment in a way that we haven't been able to achieve yet. And that's not because we haven't been doing the work. That's because we have been on a path that, due to circumstances outside of us and the limiting beliefs and some of the things that we carry within us, stories from our families of origin, things that we were told we could or could not do, we have been keeping our foot on the brake for a very long time. And this experience is the invitation for us to find out what will happen as we slowly release the brake. And we don't even have to hit the gas pedal yet, but we are being invited to start to see, kind of playing with it, testing it, looking at it as this exciting adventure of what happens if I go a little bit faster, or what happens if I'm not so invested in slowing everything down. They're saying that this is such an opportunity for us to find that way back home, to not just find our way back home from the standpoint of, oh, this feels good here, but to find our way back home in the standpoint of like lovers coming together, like that the beautiful feeling when you are so deeply connected with another soul that you feel the love just overflowing right up through and out of you. The invitation is to come into that type of nurturing, loving relationship with your inner self, with your inner being, with your inner knowing, so that from this point forward, you can walk in a different way. It's almost like they're actually showing me sort of like this like dancing, walking, right? It's this collaborative dance that we can establish with this inner knowing in ways that we may not even realize are available to us today. But what they're saying is that it's like the blossom, it's like the flower that's going to bloom. It's going to bloom no matter what. You can't stop it from blooming by wishing it to not bloom. And ultimately, each of us will get to the place where it becomes more, much more painful to stay in that tight bud than it does to unfold. And in that allowing of the unfolding of this experience, that's where some of the new ways of coming into connection and contact with our inner selves, our inner knowing, our inner being will start to present itself to us in a very organic way. There's nothing to figure out here. There's nothing to plan for here. And in fact, they remind me, I often say this in my own work, that man makes plans and God laughs. And right now they're saying that there isn't more true words that could be spoken, because the more we try to control the outcome of what's happening right now, the harder it will feel for us as we're moving through the process. And that it is in the allowing of this to unfold, and it's in the allowing of our being, our human thinking minds, to be open to the possibility that there are different ways of looking at this, different ways of looking at how we come into connection with us, different ways of looking at ourselves as worthy, as valued, as heard, as seen, as beautiful creators on this planet. We each have chosen to be here at this time for the purpose of not only learning this coming home to ourselves, but in the learning and then the living, we're actually rippling out such a beautiful example to anybody who's ready to also come into that alignment. And again, what they're coming back and saying is it's in that there's a small subtle pivot in the way that we are being asked to look at how we show up in the world. And that the subtle pivot is that whether we call ourselves healers, or whether we call ourselves teachers, or whether we call ourselves, by whatever name we do, and our belief that we're here on this planet to heal the planet, to serve the planet, the pivot is that it is in the serving of ourselves. It is in the healing that we allow to happen. Not in the healing something broken, not in something that needs to be fixed, but in the healing and the allowing the healing to happen. And the being open to the possibility that things can look different for us than what we believe them to be. It's in those things that actually allows us to show up in the world in service to all that is being created and co-created and shifting right now. All that's being shed, all that's being birthed. It's in that simple, subtle act of pivoting from our desire to outwardly be in the world as a service and inwardly be of service from that place of that the light that shines through us that then radiates out into the world. And it's a very different energy. It's moving ourselves from our thinking mind, and it's moving into this heart mind, this heart intelligence, this intelligence that is in some ways much more intelligent than our thinking mind. And in all ways, it is clearer and cleaner because the personality doesn't get all tangled up in our heart mind, where it can get tangled up at times for all of us in our thinking mind. And the shift there, again, they're reiterating it because it's such an important message for each of us to hear and to hear and to hear and to then begin to digest, is that we can only impact our experience. We can only be in the space of evolution and evolving, even as it impacts the collective, through our inner focus, through our inner work. And we use the word work, but it's not in the striving, efforting, struggling way that so many of you describe work. It's in the way of awareness. It's being aware of where you are not in alignment, and then using your intentionality to come back into alignment. That's how we use the word work. That's how we describe work for the purpose of this conversation. We want to just take a breath here because we feel like there's been this very large bit of information that we've just imparted on you in ways that are maybe new in how you're thinking, maybe different in what you were believing. And maybe it's the same and it's in alignment to the way that you've already been living your lives, but there are new and different nuances here that we've shared with you that we really want you to take the time to be aware of, to take the time to allow it to integrate, to even use your visualization or your imagination in allowing the information to filter all the way down to all of the cells in your body, because you're asking for this deeper information and you're ready to embody this deeper information and you're ready to come home to who you really are in bigger and bigger ways. This is not a flip of a light switch. We know that, and we know you know that, but we want you to be aware of the step by step by step action here, the muscle that you're building, the energetic resonance that you're building is, it's magic. It's magic because it is something that, it's something that not just the collective of people who are on this call, but the greater collective has been asking for. It's the way to the next place that we're all moving towards. And believe it or not, even though when you look outside, you don't see it this way, but we will, not only do we want to remind you, but we're going to probably continue to remind you if you stay with us for some time in the future, that we are walking as a collective. It doesn't look like that when you look at the reality of the moment, but there is so much walking as a collective. It's like this long line of hand holding as we're moving forward. Yes, there are some that are a little behind and there's some that are a little bit forward, but it is a majority. It's a tipping point when you look at the conscious awakening that's happening, that there are more and more people that are holding hands in this line, not front to back, side to side, collectively moving in this time of evolution, collectively desiring to experience the joy and the adventure and the excitement, while holding space for the grief and the loss and the fear that can be present at the same time. But the fact that we don't always see evidence of it outside of us, it is still a place for us to be in awareness that, and what we want you to really tap into, to tune into, is to recognize this collective so that it doesn't feel so obscure. It doesn't feel so out there, that you are using this time to really learn to love yourself more and more. That you can then find that safety within yourself, and that those who are exhibiting behaviors that don't emulate that right now, we don't lose faith in them. Don't lose faith that they will never get there, because they will get there. They will get there, or they will choose to not get there. And many will choose to transition to the non-physical because they're not in a place that they're ready in their physical experience to get there. But what we want you to take away from today's call more than anything is that there is a beautiful invitation here for you to do this internal work, this internal shifting, this internal pivoting for your greatest good, for your highest good. It is a time to be selfish in the way that we look at how we take care of ourselves. It is a time to be conscious and intentional in what we do to serve ourselves and others from the place of this inner awareness, this inner love, this inner nurturing, this inner fostering of the relationship with our soul. And we'll end with saying that it is from that point that the magical experiences that are here for you will start to show up in ways that you cannot even imagine right now. This unfolding is going to bring surprise after surprise after surprise for you personally in ways that will be unexpected, and not in ways that will only be or only feel like crisis, but in ways that will feel like magic, in ways that will feel like adventure, in ways that will feel like bringing something new to the world that no one has ever experienced before. And we appreciate your willingness to be here and do this and learn and be open to these invitations to tap in deeper into the who you really are. Because the difference that that will make in the energy that is surrounding the collective is bigger than we have words for today. But we can promise you that the words are coming, that the way that we begin to describe what this new, some call a new earth, we don't particularly like that description, because the earth is going to stay the same, though it will be significantly changed through this. But these words will start to evolve as the consciousness evolves, as the collective evolves. And we are so excited to watch and see and connect with the way that this evolution occurs for each and every one of you. So we'd like to open this up for questions now. And as we said earlier, and the best way to ask a question is to simply, in the chat, put a question mark next to your name. And we'll take people in whatever order they come. Margaret, I'm gonna leave that up to you. We're gonna all leave that up to you. Also, just a reminder for those that might have come into the call a little bit later, the questions do not have to be pertaining to the channeling that was on today's call. It can be anything that you are wondering, questioning, soul searching. So, do we have questions, Margaret?
Yep. First, we have Kate McCarthy. I'm going to unmute you now. You can go ahead. Nope. Oh. Keep clicking on it, and it's not unmuting.
Kate, you might have to unmute from your end.
Yeah, I keep
I
clicking on unmute, and it's not doing anything. Well, Kate, if you can hear me, if you can type in the chat, and we'll see if we can fix it. So for now,
it looks like
nope.
Oh, looks like
There
she's unmuted.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Hello, Kate.
Hi, darling. I first want to thank the Greater Consciousness for speaking through you. My question is this pull that I have to continue to stay home, and and then the pull to serve my clients and my practice and my business. And I just continue to kind of like, the image I'm getting is I'm just still standing in the middle of the seesaw, and I haven't gone one way or the other. And it's beginning to get a little uncomfortable.
Well, part of what they're showing me is that part of the indecisiveness is that you really do feel like there is such a nurturing benefit to you on both sides, so that you in the past have used your intuitive knowing to say, okay, I know that what feels good to me is the direction in which I need to go. And so following along with the invitation for what the greater consciousness was sharing on the call today is for you to be able to start to look at in which direction serves you the most, and take your client out of the picture, and take your family out of the picture, and really get clear for yourself on what it is that will nurture you, that will create for you a feeling of excitement in ways that you haven't felt excitement before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they're
Thank
saying
you.
that, Kate, they're saying that you're actually really, they're using the word close, but I think the word that feels more resonant to me is clear. They're saying that you really have more clarity on this than you're giving yourself credit. And part of it is because you go into that thinking cycle of who you will let down, depending on which direction you lean on the seesaw, which end of the seesaw is going to hit the ground first. And they're saying that you don't have to do that, that the balance point for you is to find the space in which first and foremost you're serving your highest, and then from there you can easily shift back and forth, shift your weight, shift your weight back and forth in a way that they keep using the word first and foremost, so I'm going to keep saying first and foremost, you are serving you. Okay. And to be open to the possibility that your current work, or the work that was before this, may not be the work that you're moving towards in the future. And so to not hang on too tightly to what you were doing before, because that also blocks things a little bit for you. And the obligation that you feel towards everyone. And they're saying that obligation is really like, take that energy and really turn it on yourself in a way that's loving and nurturing. And so what is your obligation to you first?
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up we have Elizabeth Hayes. I will unmute you now.
Oh, where'd you go?
Go ahead.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I am so great. Thank you so much for doing this. It's so amazing. Yes. Okay. I loved the part of the receiving that you were having about the work of shifting yourself. I don't know if that was like the exact language, but that, am I hearing it right, that was the dominant intent of life, and that sharing perhaps, or being an example, or teaching, or whatever, is secondary?
That's it. That's exactly it. And it's not that those things aren't important. And it's not, they're not saying that we didn't come here to do those things out into the world because so many of us did. It's that we were conditioned from very young ages, most of us, many of us, all of us, to believe that service equated to putting it all out, and we often didn't get, and we still don't get reinforcement from the world around us that says, oh, if you don't focus on you first, then all of that sharing makes no difference. And so, and what they're reminding me of is this story that I often am reminded of when I'm doing sessions, something that the Greater Consciousness defined maybe last year for me, something called self-harm through service. And I love that language because so many of us believe that in order to really serve, we have to sacrifice the who we are or what we need or what our wants are. And even if outwardly what we put out into the world does help people, if every time we're serving from that standpoint, we are actually inflicting self-harm on ourselves. Our souls are taking a hit because we're not in alignment with what that inner being is wanting for us, but we are also creating potentially problems emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, because it is the self-inflicted harm when we aren't serving from a place of truly being in alignment with and focused inward on what we need, what our soul needs, what that marriage, what those lovers are looking for, right? That's the big piece of it. And that was their big message today.
It's really, really beautiful. I feel like my dominant intention has been a lot on myself and then on my family. And about 18 months ago or so, I had this calling and download really about a next phase of sharing more out in the world. And I have, I guess what it feels like, had an awareness similar to what you're talking about, that I have had some inner mastery myself. And even though there is a calling to come out, I really want to dance harmonically with maintaining, and that the work I want to do, I wanted to enhance this already harmonic state that I've cultivated for myself, not take away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one thing that they want me to say to you in this conversation, but also to everyone who's listening, is there's no judgment here for what we are intending to do. And in your work, and in many of the people who are here on this call, the work that we are doing is coming from a place of intentional benefiting of the planet, of the world, of the people we come in communication with. So that's when they were talking about that subtle pivot of it's got to come from a different basis for you to have an impact that not only puts that work into the world in a way that it can be more readily received, but that your energy is leading by example so that others can both consume the what you're putting out into the world and also see how you're doing it so that they can begin to align themselves in the same way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, next we have Meg Mill with a question. I will unmute you. Go ahead.
I'm unmuted. Thank you, Amy. I decided that I wanted to ask a question as soon as I heard Kate's question, and I heard how beautifully you answered it, and I feel like I'm in such a similar place as her. So everything you were saying to her was relating to me too. And I feel like I have this split energy that career-wise, I do have also that family pool. And then every time I feel like I start to get clarity on the direction I want to go, there just has this change of energy. So I just am feeling like my energy is all over the place and I'm having trouble finding direction. So I wondered if when you were saying that, if that was particular to Kate or if you were kind of feeling that as a whole.
Well, the thing that's so lovely about this is that often the questions that are asked and answered apply, to more than just the one person that's asking. But for you, there feels like a little bit of a different slant here, because while that obligation piece exists for you, there's also this piece that feels, and it may be a deeper level piece, so you may not necessarily feel this intellectually, but it almost feels like there's a part of you that is holding off or holding back achieving the balance that you're looking for. So almost like there's this familiar feeling of being on that seesaw, as Kate was describing, and almost like you're on there doing this up and down, back and forth thing. And so when you get to a place where you start to make a decision that feels like you're going to lean one way or the other or come into balance, it feels like it's not a familiar feeling to you, and so you balk at it. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. It kind of, I feel like it's just sort of circumstantial that there's some things that happen that change it, but maybe it is just me not being able to make that decision.
Right. And it's not and again, not from a place of judgment, but there is some part of this, and the invitation here for you is to do a little bit of a deeper contemplation around what part within you, the word that they're using is chaos, but it almost feels more frenetic.
Okay.
What part of your story are you bringing forward with you that has that underlying frenetic nature to it? Because again, what keeps coming back is that there's some familiarity with you, and you can call it outward circumstances, you can call it circumstantial, but it feels like there's just something that's a repeated cycle that when you can pinpoint what that is, that you will be much quicker to be able to come into that balance and to make the decisions that you need to make. Because you also have clarity, but then you get into this spinning, frenetic energy that almost like clogs the pipe. Does that make sense? And so it's really without getting too deep or personal here, but it's really something that what they're advising or what they're sharing is to start to look at the places in your life when you were younger, like in your maybe like 8 or 10 years old, where something happened or some seed was planted where this energetic feeling, this frenetic feeling became a norm for you. And if you can, without, don't go there, unpack your bags and stay there. But if you can touch into that space and get just a little bit of a deeper understanding of what that might be. And don't get hung up on the 8 to 10, because they just show me a picture of you as a little person, and that's what I'm interpreting age-wise. But if you can tap into that just a little bit, I think it feels like you will have some really big clarity around that. And when you can get clear on that, then the answers will come and the decisions will come in a much smoother and quicker way.
So you think that something happened at that point that made it hard for me to make a decision?
It's hard for you to make a decision, but there's a I'm just asking for another way to describe it. So, just asking for an example that might make it clearer. Let's say you're a runner and you go running every day. And so that becomes your norm. Every day you go out for a run, and the days that you don't go out for a run, it feels different. It doesn't feel as good. You don't feel as good. And so somewhere along the line, there is a habit, there's something habitual that you have created for you in a thinking way and a belief way that's actually causing this struggle with discernment and decision making. And just like the running every day, the running becomes the norm. So for you, this frenetic, this a little bit chaotic energy, this belief system that you're not allowed to be successful, or maybe you aren't allowed to make a decision because somewhere along the line you weren't allowed to make a decision. Just like when you run every day and then you don't, and that day that you don't feels weird or feels off, it's that same feeling. And so you get into this place where it feels off and you don't trust that maybe that's actually more of a normal for you than the running every day energy.
Mm-hmm. So I really only feel this energy around my career. I don't feel that in like my personal life or anything like that. It's all centered in career energy. Can you see that? Do you see that too? Or?
Well, I think that you have a better handle on it in other areas of your life, but it does, I see it as something that's not, it's not compartmentalized for you.
Okay.
But that's probably, as you're saying, that's where it's showing up the loudest.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I can see how you would feel it in that space.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Suzanne. I'm going to unmute you. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Oh, thanks for being here.
So, I started dating a man mid-January. And it's very different relationship. He's a very different person, and the pace is way slower than I'm used to. And it was going pretty slow, and then this happened, and we're at home in our respective homes. And I'm just finding that this takes up my thoughts about what this means, where it's going, who he is, who I am. In relationship is just taking up an inordinate amount of my inner space.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't get anywhere with it. I come up with different conclusions at different times, and it's pretty crazy making. Mm-hmm. So looking for any clarity.
Well, the first thing that they're saying is that it's such a beautiful gift that you've been given, both in this relationship, because it is definitely different than the people who you've been with before. But even more than that is that part of this time for you, and it connects back to everything that we talked about on the call today, it's getting really clear about what it is that you want and need. And it's almost like what we said to Kate a few minutes ago. It's like you have to put the person aside and spend the time bumping up yourself against what it is that you are truly desiring. And then sort of bring that person in and say, do they match up with these things that are really important to me? And where they don't, is it something that I can come into alignment with or not? I mean, the really the gift of this is you are being given the opportunity to do this relationship thing different than you've ever done it before. And what's also really interesting is that you can come out the other side of this, whatever that looks like, with also a decision. And I'm not saying that this will be the decision, but a decision that you could say, you know what, as different as this person is, as hopeful as I was that this is the one or the one right now or the best of the best that I've experienced so far, you may come out at the end with the realization that it's still not what you are desiring. Or you may come out of it and say, it's what I'm desiring in all of these ways, but it's not in these ways. And then how do I co-create this relationship with this person so that I can get all of my needs met? That's the big key for you, Suzanne, is that there is a part of you that is really desiring to finally, after all this time, get to a place where you can not only articulate your needs, but then also be willing to say, my needs are okay. And if you, other person, can't hold space for these needs, that's okay too, but then we're not a good match. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah. And they want to be really clear that they're not trying to talk you one way or the other. And they're also not wanting to give you the feeling like this is good or bad, because the work here for you is to really get clear on what it is that you want and desire, and then see how it matches up to that. And then you make your decisions from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
But you're on the
that's-
right track. You're already doing that exploration, but the problem is that you then get in your head.
Yes.
And you know, the questioning, like, well, what if this is really it? And I'm mucking it up because I have all these other things that I want to look at or make sure or compare. And the beautiful piece of it is they're saying is that there is a part of you that understands your worth in a way that you have never understood it before. And it feels a little uncomfortable, and keep going.
Got
Keep
it.
going on that path. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have, and I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this correctly, Sisa. I'm going to unmute you. There. I think sometimes I'm trying to unmute them and they're trying to, there we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Amy. I want to thank you too, and the Greater Consciousness too. And please excuse my English. It's 2 in the morning in here, so.
I'm so grateful that you're on this call. Thank you so much. We have a global population here, you guys. It's so good.
Thank you. My question is on fear, and it's because at this moment I'm finding myself quite often in the place of fear because my roller coaster is going super fast. And what spoke to me clearly or strongly was your image of the flower bud. I feel like I'm the flower bud that is afraid that it won't come into blossom or into bloom. So at the same moment when I was thinking about my question, I had another idea or another think about it, that maybe I'm rushing myself in. I'm not giving myself enough time to be the bud. And maybe this is why I'm also scared, or I'm afraid I won't grow up. I won't grow in my strength. Yeah. This is my question or thing.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that they say right away is that while the feeling feels fearful to you, they're saying that the feeling is far more about your impatience. And that the fear then becomes in the sense of, did I miss it? Am I missing it? Did I do the wrong thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I, it's almost like there's this question mark for you of, is this even the thing at all? Right? And this is about allowing, and this is about when you are thinking about it so much, and when you are worrying about it, and when you are in the judgment space about it, you're slowing the process. It's almost like you have your hands around that bud, you know, and you're yelling simultaneously, bloom, and you're holding it closed at the same time.
Oh my.
But again, no judgment in this. It's just in the space of, and I mean, the theme here, right, is this teeter-totter of, you know, how do we find balance in the middle? And you don't have to force it to bloom, nor do you have to force it to not to force it to bloom or to stay a bud, but to step back, water it, speak nicely to it every day, put it in the sunshine, make sure that it has, you know, fresh air, and allow what is going to unfold to unfold. It cannot miss you. What is yours can't go past you. And it will happen in time. In the meantime, you can find a way to create a peaceful experience as this is happening, or you can fight it, push against it, and create a lot of struggle and challenge for yourself. But either way, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in a very slow, purposeful, unfolding way for you. Because it's almost like it's similar to what we've been talking about. It's that there's information that you don't have yet, that only can come as all of the things align, as all of the people, places, and situations align. And so forcing it to bloom or keeping it from blooming just slow the process down. But when I tap into this and there is so much momentum for you to keep this moving forward that you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. You can just slow it way down. And I don't think that's what you want to do. But take it a little bite at a time, a little piece at a time, and allow it's on the last call, the greater consciousness described the time that we're in right now as this time of building a bridge, but that the bridge is being built step by step by step. We take a step, the bridge builds around us. We take a step, the bridge builds around us. We don't know where the bridge is going yet necessarily. We know directionally where we think it's going, but it's really in the step, build, pause, allow, step, build, pause, allow, that things will really start to show up for you in a way that you will be able to understand what your next inspired action is. Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yeah, it's when you spoke about giving the bud enough, like stepping back and give it enough air or sunlight, love, it really it touches my heart deeply. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Okay, according to the chat, we do not have anyone else who would like to ask a question.
No, we are right on time then. We are right on time. I'm definitely, if anyone has a question, I'm definitely open to answer a few more. I know we're at the 75 minutes just over here. So going once, going twice. Well, all right. Well, thank you all so much for joining today's call. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this work, and I'm grateful for all of you. I see that we're still recording, so I will get this downloaded and up on my Vimeo channel, and then a link out to everybody when I get it done in the next couple days. So big, huge love and gratitude and blessings to everyone. And if you're interested in me doing this again next month, let me know in an email and I'll see how I'm guided as well. But I would really like to do this again. So hopefully. Thank you all. Thank you.